Are you ready to take control of your life and join a community of like-minded women who are on a mission to live their best lives too? Healthier, happier, and wealthier? Then get ready to find the support and motivation you need to pursue your passions and goals. Get ready to develop the courage to step out of your comfort zone and try new things. Join the My Best Life Tribe membership today and unlock a world of opportunities, empowerment, and sisterhood. Our exclusive community offers courses, collaborations, workshops, events, and so much more. Don't wait any longer to start living your best life. Visit our website, www.drstemy.com, and become a part of something truly special. My Best Life Tribe, where women thrive together. www.drstemy.com.
Are you ready to bounce back?
Welcome to the Bouncing Back podcast with Dr. Stem, where resilience meets inspiration. Join us as we explore powerful stories of overcoming adversity, share expert insights, and discover the tools you need to bounce back in life. Whether you're facing challenges or seeking motivation, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome to the Bouncing Back podcast with yours truly, Dr. Stem. I am so excited because today I have a fellow colleague, I can call her, because we are in mental health, together. So I want to welcome to the show Dr. Psyche Young. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stem. Thank you.
So, Dr. Young, I know that I just mentioned that we are in the same, business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick introduction, but after that, I want you to tell us exactly what you do. So for all of you that are watching, Dr. Young is a Caribbean native who immigrated to Queens, New York in 2003 to pursue several dreams, one of which was to become a psychotherapist and the other a filmmaker. Dr. Young has a master's degree in mental health counseling and a Ph.D. in marriage and family therapy and is a licensed therapist in Pennsylvania. Dr. Young owns and runs a private practice called Vision Counseling and Wellness, LLC in Philadelphia, and co-manages Vision Productions with her husband, director Tarek M. Young. I will let you now tell us exactly in detail who you serve and the work that you do, Doc.
Thank you. I've been a psychotherapist now for the past 11 years, and I pretty much serve every community that I'm planted in, right? So in New York, I started serving individuals, children, families, couples, everyone across the ages. From, I think my youngest client might have been 3 years old. My eldest client ever was in his 80s. So I pretty much treat everyone, and I do treat a range of conditions, a wide range of conditions, including depression, anxiety. I provide trauma-informed care. We look at career and life transitions, parenting challenges, couples and communication issues, stress management, anger management, a whole host of conditions. So I've really dedicated the last 10, 11 years of my life to providing support. I love providing support to human beings and contributing to that effort to be the best version of themselves. That's how I look at it. I only play a small part. I am someone who provides an intervention, but it's really, the healing effort from them, right? Allowing me to come alongside them and provide that support.
Yes. I know in your bio it says you are from Caribbean, you are a Caribbean native. Which part of the Caribbean?
I was born on a small island called St. Kitts and Nevis. That's a federation there. And I moved to Anguilla, another small island, when I was about 8 or 9. And I call both islands home. I go back and I visit, not as often as I would like, but they're both home to me. Yes.
Oh, okay. So here's the thing. I'm originally from Zimbabwe in Africa, and you're from the Caribbean.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about some of the challenges of our work among our own culture, our own people. How have you dealt with that, and what are some of those challenges that you faced?
Right. Well, as we still recognize, there are still some stigmas that are associated with people who seek out therapeutic support. And while it's changing in our Caribbean region, where more people are seeking that support, it's still not where it needs to be. And a lot of that might come from just, the cultural background of us, just really being a strong, resilient people. And we might not readily look to seek outside external supports, right? We're very community oriented as well. So a lot of our supports are either internally, how we internally process, or through the community banding together. So sometimes there's still that hesitancy to seek out therapeutic support. And then there's the educational process. Sometimes we have to fly out to get our tertiary education. That as well is changing. I know I went abroad to study and continue my education, but now, that's changing, and there are more opportunities on the island and in the region for studying, things like mental health. So we do need more providers. We do need more people normalizing seeking support and going out and actively looking, and just making it more of a lifestyle shift to receive this kind of support.
Yes, and I'm excited because today what we are doing is also a part of that education so that people understand, mental health as well as the help that is there. So, being on that trend, I think many people will ask, what is trauma?
Mhm.
For us to start there.
Right, right. Now, trauma is considered to be an intense emotional response to a stressful event, right? It combines that psychological response, that physiological response to something that is intensely, stressful for the person. And it affects the way we can emotionally process the event as well. So, trauma is considered to be something that's really, really intense, and it affects the brain. It actually affects the way our brain functions when there's a traumatic event. Of course, it depends on the intensity of the circumstances in that event. It depends on the person and their ability to regulate emotions while that's happening. Of course, we have heard about the stress response, right? So when we're in a traumatic situation, our brain tells us, it sends off that alarm, and it tells us, oh, you have to either fight this, you have to flee from it, you might have to freeze to survive. It's going to put us in that survival mode. And that amygdala, that part of the brain, I'm not an MD, but I can speak a little bit on the actual brain function. So that's our alarm system, and it tells us, hey, we have to now prepare to either fight during this trauma, flee from it, we might have to freeze. It just depends on what's going on in the moment. And it can be very, very physiologically and psychologically distressing on the person. Therein lies the trauma.
Yeah. As you're talking, right, I'm reminded of, um, the strength that our mothers were told, just be strong and stay in a marriage, just be strong and take care of your children. But as you were talking, I'm thinking, you know what? That resiliency of being strong, enough for the children, for the family, can it also turn into trauma of having to, suppress all the pain and any feelings and anything? Can that throughout the years also become something that could be termed as traumatic?
Mhm. I believe it can. I really believe it can. And it depends on whether there are like really adverse circumstances that the person is dealing with. So let's look at the mother who is enduring abuse in that marriage, but feels that she has to stay, she has to keep this family together, she has to be the one to protect the children because now there's an abuser. So that in itself is a very traumatic experience, and it's considerate, it's prolonged because now it might be going on for some
Yep.
time.
Yep.
So certainly that mother might not even. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm sorry, something interrupted us. So sometimes that mother might not even realize that she is affected by trauma, right? And sometimes you have to be aware and cognizant that this is something that's going on, and not everyone knows what their experience is called.
Yeah.
So she might just be thinking, I have dependents, I have to stay alive. I have to stay alive, not just for me, but for my children. But her functioning. So when we look at trauma, we look at things like anxiety and stress and depression and all of it. We're looking at a person's functioning, and we're looking at how it adversely affects their thinking and even behaviorally. And it's really now so much rooted into negative health outcomes, health risks now. So it's very serious to provide that psychoeducation about, what trauma is and how it can affect us and what are some situations that are considered traumatic. That parent might not, because it might be such a norm for her in her thinking, she might not even consider that to be traumatic. And again, trauma can be subjective in that one person's trauma is not necessarily the other person's trauma. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well said, well said. So now with the COVID-19 that, we experience, and I believe that the symptoms are still lingering, around years. What are you seeing in the practice of people that are coming in, now post-COVID as far as mental health is concerned?
Right, right.
Yeah.
People are still experiencing the residual effects of dealing with COVID. There's still some anxiety about just general safety. Are we safe and ready to just be as social as we were before?
Yeah.
Right? What are they're kind of standing on guard and thinking, well, what are the new things that will come about related to COVID or related to some kind of pandemic in our future? We didn't imagine that we would have to deal with COVID at all. I see it a lot too with interpersonal interactions and socialization and how people are now readapting to coming back outside. I know it's been 5, 6 years, but they're still experiencing some social interpersonal difficulty, especially teens and younger people who that coming of age was happening during COVID, and now they're expected to be young adults who the social skills are just not always there. So it's different areas that we're seeing that in the anxiety levels, the interpersonal dynamics, sometimes just that sense of personal safety. And again, feeling like you're on guard for what's next.
That's true. That's true. That's true. You mentioned the young people. What are parents to look for? Because then, sometimes there's a gap. Where is it just being a teenager and just being, rebellious? Or now are we talking some mental health that we need to find, Dr. Young, and say, Doc, can you do an assessment? What can they look for? And, just to help them out.
Right, right. So definitely looking at functioning and behaviors, if they're very, very withdrawn and preferring to stay online because now that's a comfort zone. They're interacting mostly via the media or online, and that feels more comfortable for them being behind a screen. So just looking out for that lack of motivation to do things and be outside and be outdoors. And as we know, that can also be an indicator of just really you're not getting enough vitamin D, you're not getting enough fresh air, you're just insulated and withdrawn. And it really does affect functioning in those ways. And so parents just doing that check-in and looking at, well, how much time is my child spending indoors, in the room, engaged only online? Are they now experiencing deficits in those social skills, they're just people skills, just being around community? That can have an adverse effect on even just interacting with others and peers in class. Sometimes now because they're back in class and they have so many, peers with different personalities and different levels of impulse control, they're not navigating that social arena in the way that they should optimally. So sometimes we want to, hear from teachers, parents, you want to kind of consult and have that community level, like looking out. You want to look out for the teens and the younger folks with things like social skills and how are they feeling motivated as they go through the world.
Yes.
Right? And depression is more intense when you're withdrawn and not as connected. So your depression levels are higher, your anxiety is more intense. Those are some telltale signs there that there needs to be more support.
So here's another question that many parents, and I'm sure you probably face it as well, many parents want clarity on. do I have to have my child on medication if I want them to get therapy? Is a question that most parents will ask. Do they have to be on medication if they are seeking mental health? Because many people won't seek mental health because then I don't want my child to be put on medication. What would you say to that?
Right.
What?
Medication is not an automatic, just, it really does depend on a lot of the criteria, right? What is this child experiencing? And is the experience something that just warrants clinical intervention, parental interventions, community-based supports, or are there, is there a deficit with how the brain is functioning chemically? That's where the medication can come in. And sometimes just that nervous system, that self-regulation might be a little bit of a challenge. And you might want to see if you've exhausted all the other interventions and they have not been effective, do we now need to seek medication support? So it's not just a given. And it depends on the condition, it depends on the severity and intensity, and it depends on the child, right? We have to look at a sort of like a biopsychosocial piece, your biological functioning, the psychological functioning, your social functioning. And we have to look at that in totality before deciding, well, what is going on here? And we have to look at the diagnostic criteria before we can determine. And we do definitely refer to a psychiatrist at times if we feel like a psychiatric evaluation is warranted, because that will be that comprehensive piece that tells you, do we explore medication support here?
Thank you so much, because part of it is, for people to understand that there is a process.
Yeah.
It's not something that is automatic. And also every treatment is individualized, which is what you just explained as well, that depending on the whole biopsychosocial assessment that we do, then we can determine whether medication, evaluation is also a necessity.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. So here's the thing. I know you've worked for 11 years, you said, right, in the mental health field. Give us an example for that skeptical person that is still saying, I don't know if this therapy thing is mine or it's a thing for me. Can you remember one or two, people that you helped and actually, can talk about their journey and how therapy was helpful to them?
Yes. So I believe that there has to be a buy-in for them, right? A way that lets them know I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing it because my family expects it. I'm not doing it because my spouse expects it, or, society has said I'm dysfunctional and I need support. Yes, but you have to see the quality of your life. Has your functioning been affected? And how can potentially therapeutic support help you to improve in all those areas? So there has to be a buy-in. So I like to do a lot of psychoeducation on what therapy can be. I look at core beliefs of that person. Like, what are some belief systems they might have that really, really create that resistance to this process? There's some even, people with cultural differences that might just, they might not want to, seek out this support for cultural reasons. They've just, had an impression and a conditioning against it in their upbringing. And now you have to educate them on, well, here's another way to look at it. Here's another way to consider how this might be beneficial for you. And so that psychoeducation piece. And I also believe that it's very collaborative. I'm not just having a set prescribed treatment for every person that comes in front of me. I really have to tailor that based on what the presenting problems are, based on what the person, how they present to me, what their fears and anxieties are. I have to tailor my approaches to them. So when they buy in and they feel like this is a partnership and they kind of, build that trust with you, that helps them to kind of address the way they're thinking of that therapeutic support. And I said, try the first session, try the first 3 sessions, see how you feel. If it's really not for you, it might be that it's not a good match for us, or try somebody else. I really want to empower them to, seek out the right kinds of support. And I don't want to ever present myself as the be all and end all for you. Sometimes there isn't a good match. Most of the times, there are clients who come and they stick with me for quite some time, even years. But sometimes you might need a different approach. You might need a different provider. And that's okay. We all want our individuals who come in front of us to be supported in some way, our families to be supported in some way. So I think that buy-in and helping them to kind of address the concerns directly in a collaborative way and helping them to kind of look at a different perspective. You've tried it your way and that hasn't been effective. Now let's try this and see how effective it can be for you.
That's very, very, very true. So what I was looking for as well, right, was an example of a mother that came in, a couple that came in, just so at least we can humanize it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
if
Yeah,
you have one of those, do you have one? You don't have to
absolutely. Oh,
mention
there's
names, yeah.
countless stories to share.
Okay, good.
I'll use a couple because I
Yes.
remember quite a few times when you work with couples, you
Okay.
might find a dynamic of one spouse who initiated the process wanting to come for therapeutic support. The other one is a little bit more hesitant. They haven't really bought into the process. They'll come to be, accommodating and supporting to the spouse, but only when they're coming and they're starting to work with you and they realize, hey, this might actually be something that can actually help me. When I work with couples, I do take some time to meet with them individually, sometimes, and get a sense for how they're feeling and what their impression of the presenting problem is. And then I still bring them back together and we do our couples work. So in that was hesitant to again buy into why can this benefit us as a couple or even me as an individual, because there is some individual focus when you work with couples. It won't be totally individual because we're thinking systemically, but when that person realized like, hey, this is a process that can benefit me as a person in this coupleship, right? That's always a wonderful way to kind of get them to commit a little bit, even if temporarily commit. So I often have, people who come in who are hesitant. Maybe some kind of work program has said you have to seek support. So they're not willing, but now someone else has said that you have to come in, and especially people who are completely sort of averse to having any kind of outside influence affect the way they address their own behaviors, attitudes, belief systems. When you have someone else who has to come in
Yeah.
and support you, some people are not readily wanting that because they feel like it, kind of speaks to a deficit that they have. And I think the opposite. I think it's very brave and courageous to have you come and say, I do need support. I do recognize that I'm not functioning optimally. So it's very nuanced for different people, and it really does depend on how they're presenting and what they're presenting for. You
That
know,
was a perfect example. It was a perfect. And what I really liked, Doc, is the fact that you said somebody can see the benefit for themselves rather than for the unit
yeah,
of the union, right? So once you get in and you realize that this is also actually something that is helpful for me and also for the relationship, then that's a buy-in. I love that you say that because many people will come in and say, well, he doesn't want to, to do this or she doesn't want to do this. And again, if you come in and say, I'm working on me as well as on us,
yeah.
the results are even better.
Right. I've actually had couples who came in for a single couple's issue,
Yes.
but throughout the course of treatment, I've identified, no, we both have some individual work to do. And they were referred to individual therapists. And that started being really, really helpful. And it really enhanced the work we did in our couple sessions. So that happens as well.
Yeah, I actually require that they do have an individual therapist,
Yeah.
that way, again, it doesn't become so heavy in the sessions. So that's a good thing that you do that as well, because I find that very helpful to say, you know what, I mean, it's not mandate, but for best results, if you have a separate therapist that you can also process what we talk about in the couples therapy, it's going to be helpful when we come back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really good. So, The other thing that I wanted to ask you, right? Do you also provide group work? Because then I know that there are some people that say, you know what, I would rather hear from other people that are going through what I'm going through right now. Is that a service that you provide as well?
Not currently, but I have before, and
Okay.
it's still something that can come about. I think I look at the needs of the community that I'm serving, and if I see a need for any kind of group work, I can definitely look to establish that. I once looked at establishing a support group for parents who have children with special needs. I ran a co-occurring disorder support group once at a community-based clinic that I worked at. So group work is never ruled out. It's looking at the needs, the current needs in the community. And if I see that need is warranted in my practice, I can definitely organize and arrange a group and have, I like when groups are led by at least two people sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually something that can occur if needed. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. So, talking about pain, I know when we started, I think it was pre, the show, we were talking about everything being pain, coming under pain, whether it's trauma, relationship problems, parenting problems, self-esteem, losing a job, everything coming under pain. So, in order for them to turn it into power, can you talk about how receiving therapy can, be powerful or can help turn all of that pain into power?
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, it's really perception and the mindset shifts that can happen, right? So we experience a painful event, let's say a loss of job or even a loss of, a loved one. That's certainly painful, but that painful experience in itself doesn't define all of the totality of who we are, even in that experience. So sometimes that, the way that the person is perceiving the painful event can be something we address, and they can actually turn that painful event into something powerful. Let's look at losing a loved one, but then being able to say and share how I have worked through my pain to overcome it to the point of healing. You can become an advocate for other people. There are positions now called peer support specialists. That's a way of kind of turning that pain into something really hopeful and positive for other people. You can become an advocate. You can become someone who leads a peer support group to kind of share how your experience shaped how you build that character, practice resilience, how it developed you, how it caused you to look inward some more, and do the work to then emerge as a more empowered and powerful person. So yeah, it could be very transformative. Pain can be very transformative. You know that expression, there's nowhere to go but up when you're down,
Yes.
right? It's very true. When you're down and you feel like you've hit rock bottom in that painful state, if you're thinking of healing, there's nowhere else to go but up. And so that is a process, and it does take commitment and it does take awareness and work, right? And you have to be receptive to receiving the support to help you transform that pain into power. Some people are not able to do it on their own. It's more difficult, and that's where we come in to kind of provide an intervention, provide some supportive avenues, right? Some coping skills and techniques to turn that pain into power.
Awesome. So I'm going to go into some personal questions. What made you decide to do the work that you're doing now?
Mm. So this started in the late 90s when I went to undergrad. I did two courses,
Uh-huh.
Intro to Psych 1 and Intro to Psych 2, and I was hooked. I loved studying human behavior. I've always had a fascination with what makes us human, the human condition, right? What makes us think the way we think, what makes us behave the way we do. And it might have come from my mother studying social work when I was growing up. She was a social worker and a counselor, and she
Oh,
would share certain stories with us. And
yeah.
so that kind of, that seed was planted, but it
Yeah.
wasn't until my undergrad studies, and I did those two courses as like those electives, to make up credits, but I fell in love with them. And it took me another 10 years to go back into grad school to actually study, but it stayed with me that I was supposed to be someone who helped others work through and be aware of their human condition and what are some of the pitfalls there that can affect them and their functioning. So yeah, it's been a go ever since. And even spiritually,
Yes.
I believe that it's part of my purpose and calling because I had an experience that I'll share. I don't share this with everyone, but I began having dreams before I even enrolled in my master's program. I began having dreams of lines of people coming to see me. And I would ask Yahweh, I say Yahweh,
Yes. Yes.
God, I
Yes.
hope that's okay. But I
Yes.
said, who are all these people coming to see me? And he said, very clearly, you're supposed to help them. And I was like, me? This was before I even started studying, any kind of psychotherapy counseling, right? So, and I had this was a recurring dream. I want to say I had it at least 3 or 4 times, just lines of people. And then I would start getting sort of like flashes of different people, just faces, strangers. I don't recognize these people in my waking life. So I chalk it up to that experience spiritually of, Yahweh trying to tell me, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. And I have to be obedient, right, to that
Yes.
call. And it's been something that has been so fulfilling to serve all these communities throughout the different years here. So this is what I do, and this is what I'll continue doing for some time, whether it's actively sitting with someone and providing therapy or creating a workshop to help people, help others, that ripple effect, or speaking on a podcast or a panel discussion about mental health support. I found different avenues of support because this is supportive too. Someone will look at this podcast and absolutely gain from it.
Yes.
So this is a part of me walking in that purpose too.
Thank you so much. And what do you love about doing the work? 11 years into it, what do you love about it?
I have to say, I love seeing the moment, and sometimes you can see it. You see the moment that a client has a shift in, like an aha moment.
Oh
Sometimes
my
you can see it
goodness.
all over their face. They might tell you they had the moment, but sometimes even if they don't tell you, you can kind of see it in their expression and the way they, are comporting themselves that they just had a moment that shifted everything. I love watching that. I love being witness to that. And we don't always address it, but it's something that I love seeing happen.
Yes.
And at some point, there's going to be evidence that, hey, now I'm able to improve my functioning and coping, especially when they didn't have the hope. When they didn't have the hope, but you see them starting to have more hope. They're waking up every day, they're coming to their sessions, they're doing the work, and you see that transformation happening. I love witnessing that and knowing that I was even a small part of it, right?
Yes, yes, yes. It's interesting. As you were talking, right? I wrote aha before you said an aha moment.
The aha moment. Yep. Mm-hmm.
To say that aha moment, I also see, so I'm now only doing virtual. Mine is virtual. I closed down, COVID. But even though the experience is still the same, right? When I was in the office or even now on Zoom, people show up earlier to their appointments. They come in, ladies are all made up, they have a makeup on, and the gentlemen are coming in with a nice shirt and pants. But compared to the first time when I saw them, right, and I'm going, oh, somebody's feeling better.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
that's just that indication that somebody is now taking back control of their life and they're feeling better. Therefore, it shows on their face, it shows in the way they walk and dress that, you know what, I'm going to make the most of this day, so I'm going to show up, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The
Yeah.
entire presentation can change. Your countenance changes
Yes.
once healing starts to happen.
Yeah, yeah. So as we end, words of encouragement, words of invitation to those that have never sought mental health counseling or even thought about it, what would you say to them, Doc?
I would just encourage a person to really look at, how am I doing? That question, how am I really doing? And if your answer is, I'm not doing as well as I can, and you're examining your functioning, you're looking at your life and your quality of life. If you desire a better quality of life, more optimal functioning, if you feel like you've tried everything yourself and within your willpower, you need a little more, that's the time to seek support. There's actually something really admirable about going to seek support and acknowledging, I've done it my way, it hasn't been effective. Now I can try it another way. I think there's bravery in it. I think there's that in itself is something empowering, that you've given yourself a gift of wellness.
Yes.
I really look at it as a gift of wellness to go and seek therapeutic support. So I encourage you to follow through. I encourage you to seek out support on the community-based level. It could be someone who's in private practice or someone who works at a clinic, but support is out here. Support is definitely out here. And I'm coming from the days as a case manager all the way up to working in mental health clinics and now in private practice where I'm providing the same kind of support, just at a different level. So it really is something I encourage people to seek out and use your resources, right? Use your resources and use your support system to help bridge the gap of support, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And where you find it difficult to find and access the resources, someone else might come alongside you and provide those resources and actually help you, your insurance company, your provider, your medical provider, they can bridge the gap. Someone who works at the clinic where you go for care, they can absolutely provide a list of resources to help improve mental health. So be open, be a little open and receptive to your healing. You owe yourself that gift of wellness.
I love the fact that you call it a gift of wellness. Where can they find you for those that say, you know what, I like her, let me try mine with her? Where can they find you?
Right. Good. So I serve all of Pennsylvania. I'm licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm online under yavisioncw.com. That's YAH, the word vision, VISION, CW.com. And I'm on my social media pages. I have Facebook under the same name, Ya Vision Counseling, Instagram, Ya Vision Counseling, just so you can kind of follow what I'm doing. And if you want to connect for support, absolutely, now is the time. Yeah.
Doc, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. And thank you once again for being our guest here on the Bouncing Back podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
You're welcome. And to all of you that have enjoyed this conversation, I also want to remind you, because many people also say, well, but it's too expensive to get counseling. If you have a job, many of the employers have a benefit called EAP, Employee Assistance Program. EAP is a free service that you can get free counseling sessions for yourself as the employee, as well as for your family as well. So please go and ask if you haven't seen it in the break room, because in most break rooms they'll put all the benefit numbers on there. As for the EAP number, call your EAP and start getting that free service for yourself as well as your family, children. They do individual, family, couples, even for the children. They get to see a therapist for free. So I just want to make sure that people understand that and also know that. Until next time, this is Dr. STEM. And as I always say, be encouraged.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Bouncing Back podcast with Dr. STEM. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and packed with valuable insights. Remember, no matter the challenges you face, resilience is within your reach. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Join us next time for more stories of strength and perseverance. Until then, keep bouncing back.